Right now, I think pretty much all content marketing should be obsolete, and that includes like influencers. I've been playing around with a bunch of UGC content generators recently, and you can generate avatars that are incredibly good and can generate UGC style content in video. So that entire ecosystem of people generating content for a living, whether that be blog form content, video form content, audio content, I think is going to go away, or it should go away as quickly as people are willing to adopt these technologies to generate. But then the jobs of people running businesses is, okay, now we've done this extraordinarily well and automated this with technology. I have a lot of human capital. Where can I redeploy it to be effective?
Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Liam.
Of course. We came into touch in a pretty interesting way. Around 3 weeks ago now, we did a podcast with Jake George. We were talking about agents, and the title that we used for it is How a $20 Agent or How a $20 AI Agent Won't Replace Your Team. You actually sent me an email pushing back on that and wanting to offer a kind of counterpoint. So can you tell me a little bit about why you sent that email in the first place?
Sure. So firstly, I really believe in the power of AI just philosophically. And I think a lot of people just don't appreciate just how powerful these technologies are, because most people are just using them as chatbots, research tools, like help me find a gift for my wife, or help me find, a great restaurant to have dinner at. But then secondly, very tactically, right, I actually just launched a, $25 a month agent that does a lot of marketing things more effectively than human beings. And we can get into that later in the episode, but setting aside my technology, there's actually just a lot of these cool technologies out there that where they are providing a product, an AI product that for $10 a month, $20 a month, $25 a month can actually do something that historically human beings did, and not only do it faster, but better. I'm a huge user of these tools. And so I kind of reacted a little strongly when you said this is not possible, when in fact I do it in practice and I've done it at scale at some pretty large companies.
How long have you been working in AI? And when did you notice that inflection point from where AI was being used and it was like, okay, it's not quite good enough, to the point where you can so strongly believe that it can replace?
Sure. I can tell you the exact moment. So up until for the past 3 years, I've been CEO of a global B2B SaaS company, about 100 people, been around about 15 years. And 2 years ago, so ChatGPT at this point has been out about 6 months. There's been all this buzz around it. And I've played around with it, same as everyone else. Oh, it's a cool tool. But here's the specific moment when I realized these technologies are insanely good. Okay, so I'm sitting in a bar in Amsterdam. I'm having a slice of pizza. I'm having a beer. And my wife is upstairs in the hotel room getting changed. We're about to go have dinner with some friends. So I've got 30 minutes or 45 minutes to kill. So I fire up Chat, and I realize my company doesn't have any social media presence. We have a LinkedIn page that we haven't updated in a long time. We have a Twitter feed that we haven't posted to in 2 years. I'm like, I got some time. Let's see how good how well I can do this. In 30 minutes, I kid you not, me at that point, not being a social media expert, not being an expert at ChatGPT, and having no idea what works on social media, I had ChatGPT just print out a ton of very interesting social media posts, posted it and scheduled it all, and just let it run. And I scheduled it out for the next 9 months. And I came in and checked on it like a month later, and all of a sudden I'm like massively outperforming my competitors using technology that's pretty simple. And again, it took me as a non-expert 30 minutes to do. So at that point it clicked, like, what if I was actually expert at this? If a non-expert can achieve this level of performance, outperforming competitors who have massive marketing teams, what could I or folks who use this technology better or more effectively do? And that's when the light bulb really went on, that this technology is way more powerful than most people gave it credit for at that point, or even today.
When you have this light bulb moment, you're sitting at this cafe in Amsterdam, you're having a beer, you're having some food, you have this moment, you realize this. What's your next steps after that? Do you take that to your team as a CEO and you're like, right, we have to invest heavily in this? How do you train yourself on that at that point?
There were 3 things I did. Number one is, there were only 2 like top-down decisions I made when I was running IdeaScale. One of them was everyone in this company, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a salesperson, has to go learn these technologies. There's literally 2 orders that I sent out to the entire company that says, this is an order from the CEO. You have to do this. That was one of them. Go learn this technology because you need to. It is just that amazing. So that's number 1. Number 2, I realized that, look, I'm still pretty bad at this stuff. I'm using it the same way like an average user. So I actually went and took some courses on prompt engineering. I already have a semi-mathematical background, so I understood the math behind this, but that's not that useful. So I actually took courses in prompt engineering. I took like 4 or 5 different courses, both formal ones as well as like more YouTube training hack type courses. And number three, as actually part of our hiring process, we made that a core part that, hey, can you use this technology effectively for the role you're being hired for, whether that be a Copilot coder for an engineer or whether that be a content generator for a marketer.
Let's talk specifics. Do you remember like what course that you put them through, how long it was? Was it just prompt engineering? Did they have to learn about the different models, the fundamentals?
Sure. So I didn't put anyone through a course. I took a bunch of courses myself and said, hey, everyone in the company should learn how to use generative AI technologies. And secondly, here's some courses that Nick, took that I recommend to every employee, and we'll pay for it. Or we'll pay for some other course if you want to take. The courses I specifically took are from Coursera. So I have an annual subscription to Coursera where I can, take as many courses as I want. So I take courses in marketing and software engineering and generative AI, one in music theory. So I took it from there because I have an annual eat as much as you want subscription. But there's other great courses out there on Udemy, on YouTube, et cetera, that, are free or cost really nothing. But really, really recommend folks take at least the basic prompt engineering courses because there are insane hacks that you can just 10x your output with.
Do you remember the amount of your employees, percentage-wise, that actually took you up on your offer to go and take those courses? What was the kind of general consensus internally?
So my estimate is that as of right now, about half of employees at IdeaScale are using generative AI as a core part of their workflow. I don't track this because I don't want to track what my employees do. But total guess, I estimate probably about 20+% went and took some formal training in these technologies.
Do you have any idea what psychographic or demographic that kind of nails down to? Is it younger individuals, older individuals? Where's the pushback?
I don't think anybody pushed back on it per se, partially because it wasn't a directive coming from the CEO and partially because they realized the power of these technologies. I think the big differentiator between who adopted these technologies aggressively versus not is the folks who are in positions where it generates value very obviously. So if you are an engineer and AI can write tons of boring code that you hate writing because you want to write the cool parts of code, then lots of engineers adopt it quickly. My head of engineering, who's not a spring chicken, he adopted these technologies aggressively because he was like, wow, this stuff is really powerful, right? This is someone who's been through 3 generational shifts of technology. And then conversely, some very, very young marketers are using it too because they can see that this was creating value for them really quickly and taking away the boring parts of their job so they could focus on the cool parts of their job.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everyone could use AI and there's a role for that in every single person's job, but it's just not obvious to some, which is an interesting part. That's kind of my job as well, is to make that obvious. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background in maths, physics, education, how you kind of got to be where you are today? So
my quick background is I spent 10 years as an investor at large cap private equity firms and hedge funds like Bain Capital and Greenlight. Did my MBA at Harvard Business School, have an undergrad degree in theoretical math and physics. And for the past 5 years, I've been a CEO or co-CEO of several different companies. Most recently, IdeaScale for the past 3 years. I recently left IdeaScale to focus on my new venture. But what IdeaScale does is you can think of it as a social network for ideas. So if you take Facebook or TikTok and replace your funny dance video with an idea, and an idea could be a part for a rocket ship, it could be a new burger for your restaurant chain, or it could be a new motivational program inside your employee base.
All right, let me break down your email that you sent me. So you sent me an email saying, as CEO of IdeaScale, we built an organic inbound marketing process that was 90% AI driven and allowed us to 50x inbound leads and outperform our competitors despite 1/5 the team size and 1% of the paid advertising spent. Firstly, I want to commend you on that email in general. That's beautiful. So let's break the 90% AI driven marketing funnel down first. Can you walk us through which parts were kind of automated and which still needed human oversight, based on the kind of segments of the funnel? So strategy, ideation, content creation, distribution, optimization. Were there parts that were more optimized? What does AI struggle with the most?
Sure. So for our content, substantially all of our content marketing, or I should say our blog content marketing, was AI driven. AI would do the ideation for it. AI would do the actual writing for it and the SEO optimization for it, for everything except internal and external linking, which we were still doing manually. So this allowed one employee to write the equivalent of, I think, 700 high quality articles. And I'll get into quality in a second, but allowed one employee to do 700 high quality articles that allowed us to, over the course of 6 months, like 50x our traffic, 10x our traffic, 50x our inbound leads. So imagine one employee writing these 700 quality articles. And I want to emphasize quality because this employee was not just spitting out generic articles, right? These were articles that now, if you Google anything related to innovation, which is IdeaScale's domain of expertise, you're going to run into 3 sources of truth on Google. Wikipedia, actually 4. Wikipedia, Harvard Business Review, McKinsey, and IdeaScale. So think of that. We are a small 100-person B2B SaaS company. Google thinks the quality of our content is up there with Wikipedia and Harvard Business Review. So that's what we were able to achieve. And with just one employee using primarily a mix of ChatGPT and Gemini, could be Anthropic as well, doesn't really matter, to do the entire stage of blog content production, right? From ideation, writing, and optimization.
You have human oversight this entire way. So there's kind of like operator, humans watching this happen, double checking.
Very minimal oversight generally. So the marketing team reported in directly to me, and I really focused on making sure that they were prioritizing the right sets of keywords, the right topical areas. But I was not going through and reading all these articles because we gained such I did so for the first, let's say 5, 10, 20 of them, but we gained such a trust both in the employee's ability as well as the quality of content that these generative AI were putting out that we stopped needing to have direct oversight. In fact, we found it was a waste of time that when I made edits, it actually made things worse.
Break down quality for me. We're currently going through a process internally trying to optimize our SEO as well. So I know that it's a bit of a black box and there's a lot of different components to it. So what does quality look like to you in this context?
Sure. I think quality can be defined in one of 2 ways in content marketing. And this can be true blogs, it can be UGC videos, whatever method of content marketing broadly defined. I'd say quality can be defined in 2 ways. Number one is quality is something that just drives SEO traffic because you figured out a way to hack around or fool Google's algorithm or TikTok's algorithm or Facebook's algorithm. So that's method one of quality. Does my SEO just generate impressions, clicks, leads? I personally think that's a very short-term way of looking at it because every time somebody figures out to hack Google's algorithm or to bypass its safeguards, those safeguards will get back in place during Google's next algorithmic update. So I think that's a losing battle when you're fighting against Google because Google's very, very smart. They have a lot of smart engineers and mathematicians. And if you as a marketing agency or SEO marketer are trying to fight against Google, you'll win in the short run. You're not going to win in the long run. That's a battle of attrition and Google can outfight all of us. The second definition of quality, which is really what I focus on, is or what I philosophically believe is how do you generate content that is actually valuable for the end user? Because ultimately TikTok's algorithm and Google's algorithm and YouTube's algorithm, what are they trying to do? They're trying to serve up content that is interesting to the end user, either an interesting to read or fun to watch, good to listen to, whatever medium you're using. So that second definition of quality is, can you generate content, broadly defined, that is valuable to the end user? Because the benefit of that is that will persist through Google's or YouTube's algorithmic updates.
How did you measure or track what was valuable? Were you ABC testing different articles? Were you measuring like how long they were on kind of each page? How exactly did you measure what's valuable? How do you know what's valuable?
So we didn't do A/B testing, not because we don't believe in it. I actually think A/B testing is awesome. Math background, would love to do it, but we didn't have the technical infrastructure or team size to actually run a proper A/B testing program. So we just didn't do that just due to resource constraints. In terms of measuring quality, I think we did it on kind of 3 dimensions. Number one, using all the classical tools like Google Analytics or other internal analytics as a SaaS company to figure out where are people clicking, where are people spending time. Nothing too, we're not doing anything too genius there. But the second more important thing was rather than worrying about each individual page or each individual paragraph, is it optimized for conversion rates? How is our aggregate corpus of content doing? Is our aggregate corpus of content attracting and retaining attention better each month or each week than the prior week? Are we getting more, total volume as well as more average volume per article? If so, then we've done a really good job at creating a corpus of volume. Because one of the mistakes I think a lot of folks make in marketing is really focus on, I want to just have this article so optimized, when in fact, no one's coming to your company for one article or two articles or one video or whatever. They're coming for that entire corpus or body of knowledge that you represent. When you follow an influencer, it's not just because you liked one video. It's because you like his or her body of content, that it appeals to you in some way. And that is true across all content domains, that you are coming to a company, an influencer, somebody who runs a channel, somebody who runs a gaming feed, because their entire body of what they represent is interesting to you as an end user or an end consumer.
Interesting. So you're more focused on the overall trend than specifically one article at a time.
Across all of our content, we're not worried about A/B optimizing. Even if we had the resources, I'd be less worried about A/B optimizing each individual aspect. I think that's very diminishing returns and kind of short-sighted.
All of your content, you've mentioned in their TikTok, obviously we're talking about the process of blogging at the moment. Are you using AI across different channels, across video, across different social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, or is it just blogging at the moment?
Sure. So for IdeaScale, we were 100% B2B, right? So which meant that our primary channels tended to be places like LinkedIn and our internal blog and a little bit of YouTube, which we started experimenting with about 4 months ago. So we were using purely AI generated content across all of those channels, plus AI assisted content for YouTube. So we were experimenting with things like, podcast generated in Notebook LM, as well as AI that would auto chop long form content that we created into more UGC style content without, human editing. It would automatically chop it. I add those subtitles, I add those, fun sound effects. So we started experimenting with that as well. And early results were quite good at both the AI generated content in video and audio, but also the AI, what I would call repurposed content.
Jumping then back into the blogging process as well, from what I understand, it's helping with the ideation, it's helping with the creation, it's helping with the posting. Does it help beyond that as well? Does it help with the analysis of data, managing campaigns? Where does it finish?
Sure. So I'll separate between kind of what IdeaScale does versus what my new kind of venture does. So for IdeaScale, we were using AI really for the generation and optimization part, right? Ideation, generation, and optimization. For analytics, it's actually funny, right? If things are going right, you actually don't have to do a lot of analytics, right? You can look at a graph and say it's going up and to the right. The difficult part, and I think this is actually really undertapped in a lot of organizations, is look, a lot of people don't have degrees in mathematics or statistics, so they may see a graph going up and to the right, and that's great. But when the graph is not going up and to the right, what do? That's really hard for a lot of people who don't have technical backgrounds. And most, especially in the marketing field, most people don't have hardcore technical degrees. And that is where AI can be incredibly powerful. This is not my area of expertise, but I've certainly used these sorts of tools where you literally will take a screenshot of your Google Analytics feed and drop it into ChatGPT and say, analyze this for me. And you can do that incredibly, incredibly powerfully. Or you can, drop an entire CSV file into Anthropic and say, what does this mean? Actually, my favorite prompt is dropping in a bunch of data and literally giving the very open-ended prompt, what does this mean? And you can get astounding results for that. Or what does this mean? Dumb it down for me. Is my favorite prompt of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I do something similar, obviously running the newsletter we sent to 400,000 subscribers, and just to kind of maintain the size that we're at, we have to add around 30,000 subscribers a month. So every single month I'm spending a ton of money on growth, right? Just to maintain our list size. So we have everything set up in a Looker Studio. It measures our LTV, the quality of each source and stuff like that. A lot of information. I just export that CSV, put it into Claude, and they've just released 2 new models today as well. And it's pointing out like data points that I just never would have realized. It's cross-referencing it with other publishers so I can see what time of the day is best for us to post an advertisement, like who's actually not providing results, where can I invest more money in? It's incredible, and especially from an open-ended prompt that you're talking about there as well.
And one interesting thing, right? I do have a technical background where I can pull up Python or R or statistical software and do these analyses. But to your point, I'm not going to be thinking about the cross correlations or the broader context that you talked about, where it's, publishing times with other publishers of content, because that's data that no matter how smart you are, no matter how technical you are, you're just not going to be thinking about when you're, down and dirty in your data set. And that's something that's really powerful about these AI tools, that they have context that no human being can ever be aware of, no matter how smart or well-intentioned you are.
Yeah, 100%. Moving back into this, you're obviously having a human kind of oversight this, but you're using AI all the way through. So Is there any specific roles or functions that you kind of see becoming obsolete because of AI? And what's your responsibility as a CEO with this as well?
Sure. So with each generation of technology, this can be machines, this can be, accounting software, this can be spreadsheets, certain jobs become obsolete, right? Before the advent of Excel or accounting systems, there were people whose sole job, before the advent of graphing software in the 1990s, there were people at consulting firms and banks whose job was to draw graphs by hand using rulers. When PowerPoint or Excel came out, that job went away. As an executive or somebody running a company, doesn't have to be an executive, you kind of have two responsibilities. Number one, you have to do the right thing for the organization. When groundbreaking technologies come out, you actually have a responsibility to adopt those technologies aggressively. But then you also, both as an executive as well as a human being, you have this broader ethical set of responsibilities saying, okay, how do we create opportunity out of this disruption? Because yes, certain jobs, as you said, will become obsolete. And specifically right now, I think pretty much all content marketing should be obsolete. And that includes like influencers. I've been playing around with a bunch of UGC content generators recently, and you can generate avatars that are incredibly good and can generate UGC style content in video. So that entire ecosystem of people generating content for a living, whether that be blog form content, video form content, audio content, I think is going to go away, or it should go away as quickly as people are willing to adopt these technologies to generate. But then the jobs of people running businesses is, okay, now we've done this extraordinarily well and automated this with technology. I have a lot of human capital. Where can I redeploy it to be effective?
And where do you see that? If AI is replacing all of these jobs, where does human capital get invested?
Sure. So I think marketing is going to shrink as a field dramatically. Overall, I think that we will need fewer people who call themselves marketers. I think there is still today, at least, I think that creates a lot. If marketing is being done better and better through AI engines, that hopefully generates more sales opportunities. So you do need more salespeople, number one. Number two, you need more product people. So whether you are selling burgers or software or services, look, the more leads you get, the more opportunities you have to sell stuff, which means you either need the salespeople, as I already mentioned, but you also need more stuff to sell. So someone needs to be coming up with and building cool products or services. This could be, again, new software, or it could be new types of burgers to sell at your local burger restaurant. And product managers are an increasingly valuable skill as we create more and more opportunity for people to create amazing products quickly, particularly digital products.
What do you think is different about a product manager in comparison to a marketing manager? My understanding, someone that's in product has kind of got their hands in all pies. So they understand the engineering part of it, they understand marketing, they understand everything else, and they tie that into one field. Tell me more about that.
Sure, that's a very difficult question, because product manager is a term that's tossed around very differently. Using Amazon versus Google versus Meta, it's much more you've got your hands in a bunch of different situations. At Google, you're much more technical. You're actually leading a team of engineers. At Amazon, in Amazon's retail, you own a product category. This could be men's shoes, size 9 to 10. So my definition of product manager, or not my definition, the way I'm using it in this context is someone who envisions a product and takes it from 0 to 1, both from a development perspective as well as from a commercialization perspective. So it's like the mini CEO of this product or this startup or this endeavor.
What makes someone a good product manager just now, and will that change as AI develops?
So the technical skill sets will change, and I'll mention that in a second. But what I'll start with what won't change. I think you need two things as a human being to be a very effective product manager under my definition. Number one, you need to be willing to just work your butt off, right? Because if there's 80 different things you need to do, at the end of the day, as the mini CEO, the responsibility falls to you to make sure all that stuff gets done. And if that means you work 1 hour a week, great. If that means you work 100 hours a week, you got to be willing to work 100 hours a week to get it. Because your measure of success is, I built this product, I launched it, I got it to market. That is the only measure of success in my definition of product manager. Second is the skills that the second thing that will remain invariant is the ability to do multiple things, right? You can't just be a great marketer. You need to be able to talk to your engineers, talk to your customers, like sit down and do Excel spreadsheets or Google spreadsheets if you need to. Some of that analytics. Those are things that I think will remain invariant. What will change is, number one, there will be less of an emphasis on needing an individual being extremely good at any individual skill set. So product managers today may need to be very good at coding. With the advent of vibe coding, you can actually get away with like being able to talk in natural language to a computer and it spits out code. I use this all the time in my personal life now. You may not need to be an expert in analytics because you can just take a spreadsheet of data that a gigabyte of data that you're, either too lazy to or lack the skill set to analyze and say, AI, tell me what this means, and actually go a step further. Tell me what to do about it. So I think there will be less of an emphasis on needing to be an expert at any given field of endeavor, which is often an advantage in today's product manager roles, and more of an emphasis on being able to co-pilot or work with these technologies to get them to do what you need.
Will that be true of all roles or just product managers?
It'll be true with all roles partially, but I think it is more important in product manager, or what I would call generalist roles. For someone who has to do a little bit of a lot of things, I think it will be more important to work rapidly with these technologies. For someone who is a specialist in a field, let's say you are a cancer researcher, you will, at least right now, you will still need to be an expert and incredibly deep in your domain of expertise. That could be a cancer researcher. That could be someone designing marketing algorithms. That could be someone coding engineering. That could be someone writing great novels. You will still need to be an expert in that field of endeavor if you are a specialist. But if you are a generalist, which a lot of people in the business world are, then it will be much more important or much less important to be actually really good at any one thing, and much more important to be pretty good at several things, or all things really.
You mentioned before the podcast that you've got a young child at the moment, right? Looking forward, it seems as if the education system in general is outdated for the technology that we're coming into. So in terms of like when your kid kind of grows up and stuff, how do you look at like how you'll educate them to thrive in this modern world?
So it's funny that you asked that, because this is an actual debate that me and my wife have had, as well as my neighbor. So my neighbor's a lawyer. My wife and I both have master's degrees from pretty good schools. And we're actually having an active debate about whether it makes sense for our child to, or, when he's of age, to actually go through the formal education system at all. Is there any benefit to going through K to 12 or going to college or going to a good college? And I'm probably on the more extreme end saying, no, this is not going to be relevant anymore. Getting a PhD from MIT, I think will matter a lot less. Not only that will going to MIT matter a lot less in 10 or 20 years, but also the need to be an expert will matter a lot less. Because these technologies will continue to get better and better and better. Like, I think I saw a ChatGPT now has an IQ of 132. That's better than 95 or 98% of human beings. So I'm probably on the more extreme end of most people. I don't think traditional education will matter anymore. I think some basic literacy, some basic numeracy will matter, but being able to take the derivative of a three-dimensional vector variable, I don't think matters, even if you're going into technical fields.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Do you think...
Oh, actually, sorry, one more thing. I'm probably, being more extreme. I think that at some point by the time my child is an adult, there will be some sort of chip that I can implant in his head that will give him access to, all human knowledge. And I'm going to be, once it's safe, I'm going to say, yes, let's go get that surgery.
Really? You would be pro for that?
I don't, I think it will open up a very rich world for them that I wish I would have access to. I wish I would know the great literature in Chinese or in Arabic poetry that I don't have access to, or the language skills to know. But then second, so that's the beauty of some of these technologies. But then second, there's a practicality, right? It's like the Gattaca, the movie, if you've ever seen it, right? If you don't genetically engineer your child, they will be so far behind. And I think that will be true if, these cybernetic implants come into play. And I'm kind of guessing a little bit of sci-fi here. If you don't get it, everyone else is, and your child, your family, you are inestimably behind. And that's a practical consideration as a parent. Yeah. A terrifying one, right? But something you have to be, you can't have your child be the only one who's not, it's like TikTok, right? You may not like TikTok, but if your child is not on it, when they're in elementary school or high school, they probably are being left out of the social loop.
100%. And I'm glad I don't have a child, and I'm not going to have a child anytime soon. I want a little bit of leeway before I have to think about these things. Let me bring things back to earth for a second. So one thing you did mention in the email is that you 50 extra inbound leads as well. What is it you're actually selling on the enterprise side of things? Like, what are the contracts you're securing?
Sure. So again, this is for IdeaScale, not my new venture. But IdeaScale, we sell or we make and sell what's called innovation management software. You can think of it like a social network for ideas. Our customers tend to be large organizations, both in the private sector and public sector, that are focused on, they've gotten so big that like the great ideas don't make it to the CEO's desk anymore because you have 10 levels between, the person who's got the great idea and the CEO who maybe sit in a different country, speak a different language, never cross them in the hallway or the bathroom or the break room. And so our customers tend to buy our software because they want a good way for great ideas to be collected and prioritized and make it in front of the people who can make those ideas into reality.
Got you. And based on that, do you think that the strategy you used is replicable across different industries, or is that something unique to kind of your industry, your team DNA, your market, your timing?
Sure. So the marketing strategy, I think, is highly replicable. And I'll switch to actually talking about my new venture, that was the entire theory behind me launching Content Hurricane, that, hey, we've done this really extraordinary strategy at IdeaScale, but it was still human plus AI. Can we make this entirely AI driven, and can it scale across industries and across company sizes? So I launched this about 6 weeks ago. Our alpha testers range from like a small handyman business to, $300,000-$400,000 of revenue to a, to one company that's got, north of $100 million in revenues in the CPG sector. So very, very different. And our technology is working. It is generating more and more leads inbound for customers at a fraction of the cost and with no human oversight needed. We do provide the ability to have human oversight for our customers because they like it. But in practice, we actually recommend that the AI is smarter than most human beings, myself included. And so that is scaled now. This technology works, or ignore our technology. This approach of generating very, very high quality content works in small business, like tiny mom and pop businesses. It works in a B2C context or a CPG context. It works in a B2B enterprise context, such as IdeaScale. So I do think the content has merit, because at the end of the day, whether you are a consumer, like an individual consumer, or you are, working in a large organization, you're out there buying something, your reason for buying is really driven by three things: awareness of a product that exists, number two, a problem that you need to solve, and number three, showing up and knowing that this product will solve your problem potentially. And I think the content, broadly defined, helps solve all of those three problems.
What's the North Star of the business?
Of which business?
Of Content Hurricane. Well, what is the aim? What's the goal here?
The aim,
apart from generating revenue, is there a plan for the next 3-5 years? How will it differentiate?
Sure. So I started with blog content because I know that's something I can just knock out of the park, and I have experience with it. The North Star, what I would like to achieve strategically, is this is what you use to generate awesome content for your business, and permanent content, not ephemeral content that you see on a TikTok screen, goes viral for a week and then dies, but content that stays, that is evergreen, that actually represents information that is valuable to people on the internet for whatever business, whether that be a burger business, whether that be an enterprise infrastructure business, or anything in between.
And how do you see Content Hurricane being differentiated from what's currently out there? What's the USP?
Sure. So there's two things I think that we've done intentionally very, very well. Number one is we have made the user interface stupid simple. So a lot of AI products, they give you a lot of options to tweak things, such as change the tone, change the color scheme, change whatever, right? Like both for verbal and video content. And we said, no, we'll take that away. Let the AI decide that for you. So we basically reduced it down to, you have a button that says how much stuff do you want to publish, and then you hit next a bunch of times. That's it. And we did that very, very intentionally because we think that the AI, we know that the AI can actually outperform people. I built this technology, and the AI, whenever I try and tweak the AI, it still beats me, which is kind of funny because it's like your child beating you, right? So that's number one. We made it like stupid simple. Number two is we spent a lot of time making sure that the content we are producing is non-generic. One of the challenges with all AI technologies is, like, if you go into ChatGPT and say, write me an article about fir trees, Okay. It'll write a, 2,000 word article on fir trees, but it'll be pretty generic. It'll say in these, in the era of global warming where trees are dying, fir trees will last a long time because of their resilience, right? It'll be very generic sounding language. And if you ask it and I ask it, it'll give a very similar response and be pretty boring and be pretty generic. Content Hurricane, we actually spent a lot of time making sure that the content is original, number one. Number two, it's actually expert level. And number three is it's not generic sounding. And achieving all of those three things was really hard and required a little bit of prompt engineering, but also thinking very thoughtfully about what's called prompt layering, where you have multiple layers of like content being cleaned up and cleaned up and cleaned up and cleaned up so that you get a really, really high quality end product out.
Interesting. And I imagine that's part of the secret sauce as well. So I don't want to delve too deep into that.
Secret sauce is like, look, it's our secret sauce, right? I can talk about it generally, but honestly, I think with a lot of technology companies, right, us included, what we're doing is taking a really good UX and sticking it around a piece of technology with some smart prompt engineering. Companies that do this poorly end up with a crappy UX and a crappy output. And others that do this really well have really emphasized some combination of these sets of priorities that I've mentioned across any field of like what I would call AI wrappers, people who've stuck some sort of user interface around Gemini or ChatGPT or Anthropic or some other foundational model. Our secret sauce is not necessarily the technology, but rather that we have taken a very specific perspective on what creates value for our end users and like an almost, philosophical perspective. And if we're right, then that's an amazing product. If we're wrong, then we've created something that is, great to us, generates results, but is not something the market wants.
In creating value for your end users, what has you most excited, like the potential over the next 3 years?
I'll give two numbers. Our alpha test users had 142% permanent increase in inbound leads. So not like a one-time tick up where, you spend a bunch on ads, you get some leads in today. But after 6 months, they had 142% stable percent increase in inbound leads, number one. And number two, do you know the phrase dog fooding, by the way? So it's a term where you should use your own product. If you're a technology company, you should use your own software. So 100% of my marketing for the past 6 weeks since we launched Content Hurricane's website is just using Content Hurricane's technology, nothing else. No paid advertising, no partnerships, no backlink building, none of that. Despite that, using nothing but our own technology, our website is in the top 1% of fastest growing domains on the internet, beating out people who've got, funding from famous venture capital firms, came out of stealth mode where they had 2 years to build their website. 6 weeks in, our technology is literally in the top 1%, making our domain grow faster than 99% of websites on the internet. So I love what I like. To answer your question about what gets me excited, results. I'm a mathematician. I like seeing results. I love seeing numbers. And like whether or not you like my product, I can actually say with a straight face, it works.
I love that. That's a beautiful point to end on. So I want to kind of finish us off there because that's the perfect pitch. And I want to ask you kind of one question on a personal level. You seem very optimistic, very excited. You're obviously very enthusiastic about the technology that you're building, you're using based on the results. So I guess kind of like one layer deeper than that, what keeps you motivated as a human being to keep building this technology, to keep starting ventures, to keep becoming a CEO of companies? Why do you do what you do?
There's two things that motivate me professionally in life. Number one is I like building stuff. In high school, I was a construction worker. I liked building buildings. Like it was awesome at the end of the summer to see like, hey, I built this temple or built this house or built the, poured concrete and here's a wall that I built. So that applies to companies too. I like building things. I got a great sense of joy when we launched Content Hurricane's first version. It's like, oh, we built this. I wrote the original script for this. That was awesome. And number two is learning. I am a bit of a nerd. I've, got way too many degrees. I spend too much time on Coursera taking courses that have no professional value, but are just fun. And as part of building a venture, when I was building Content Hurricane, I had to go learn a lot about how these foundational models work. And that was both practical, but it was fun learning, hey, this is where ChatGPT screws up or where Anthropic's logic breaks or how to use this API. And that's just fun. And it keeps me, it's why I keep doing the next thing and the next thing.
Interesting. Well, Nick, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Liam.
Awesome. And if people want to kind of find out more about you, what you're doing, what you're building, or just connect with you personally, how would they go about doing that? Sure.
The two easiest ways are LinkedIn. I'm super, super active on LinkedIn. Or secondly, if you go to contenthurricane.com and you talk to the chatbot there, the chatbot will directly send me an email saying you want to talk to me.
All right. Beautiful. Perfect. Thank you so much, Nick.
Perfect. Thank you.